Influencers need to stop asking for free cake. At least that's what baker Rejmi Bennett, who makes these really fancy, kind of intricate cakes, says. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you remember from probably a year back, we did a video about the guy out in Los Angeles who runs an ice cream truck and said he was sick of influencers coming up to the truck trying to get free ice cream as if that was actually going to boost his business. And I think he actually put up some type of sign that said like influencers will pay double or something like that. But it was a pretty big story, and we've seen a number of similar stories in recent years of businesses getting sick and tired and fed up of influencers trying to get free stuff. I know there's been a couple of hotels and bed and breakfasts and restaurants who have kind of publicly called out or publicly shamed influencers who hit them up asking for free stuff. And so here's a story of a baker who bakes these really fancy cakes who says she's sick of influencers asking for free cake. And, we've done a couple of these stories in the past. You guys seem to like them. I figured we'd cover that one today. Well, on the topic of influencers, I came across an interesting Reddit post. And this is kind of how I look at influencers most of the time. And if I'm thinking about paying an influencer, this is typically how I pay an influencer. And we'll read this person's post in a second, but they're essentially saying the vast majority of influencers aren't actually influencers, they're broadcasters. And just because you have a big audience, just because you have a good number of people's attention, doesn't necessarily mean that you have the ability to influence them. And I noticed there's a lot of like I don't know. Let's say somebody, let's take this video right here for example. My face isn't on the video. I'm not necessarily the personality behind this video. I'm simply like reading a news story to you. So the idea that I'm going to have some influence over you as if you like look up to me or are a fan of me is kind of silly. And that's kind of the point that this post is trying to make is like the vast majority of influencers, quote unquote influencers, don't actually have the ability to influence. And when I pay an influencer, there's a select few influencers who I think, this person has a cool style, they have a cool personality, and I can see people wanting to be like them, or I can see people wanting to follow them. And I don't mind them paying the rate. I don't mind paying them the rates that an influencer typically gets, because I actually feel like not only am I going to get in front of their audience, but I also feel like I'm going to earn some cool points for them being associated with my brand. The people who follow them are going to want to be like them and are going to want to buy the stuff that they buy. But the vast majority of influencers, like if somebody has 100,000 followers, if they don't actually have influence, essentially all I'm doing is paying a CPM, right? Yeah, I want to get in front of your 100,000 viewers or your 100,000 followers. I don't necessarily think you have the ability to influence them. I don't necessarily think that they think you're super cool and they want to be like you. I just want to get my message in front of them, and it's probably not going to convert as well as with an influencer who actually has influence, but I just want to get in front of that audience because they're in a related niche to whatever I do. So a lot of times when I pay influencers, I'll look, I'll when I'm figuring out what to pay them. Okay, they got 100,000 followers. Typically maybe 60,000 people will see or interact with their post. 60,000 is 60 CPM. CPM is cost per thousand views. On Facebook ads or on some other platform, I'd pay $3 per CPM. So for their 60 CPM, that's 612. I'd pay them $180. Anyhow, let's read this. He goes on to say, most influencers are broadcasters, not influencers. Being interesting doesn't equal being influential. Just because somebody has a lot of followers on Instagram doesn't automatically mean they have influence over their audience. It's possible to be a fun person to follow without having any authority whatsoever. In fact, this is the rule, not the exception. I've consulted businesses who have worked with so-called influencers, been kind of one myself, and helped people with large audiences get deals with brands. So I've seen it from every side. It's clear to me that most people, including myself, don't have a significant influence over the masses of people. People with a big following simply have the ability to broadcast a message to a large audience. That's not nothing, but don't mistake it for influence. So, I would say the Kardashians have influence. Now, obviously, they're mega stars, they're mega influencers, but I see some women around me, either women who freelance for me, women who work with agencies that I work with, just people who I come across in my day-to-day life, and I'll hear them be like, oh my God, Kim Kardashian just posted these new, waist trainers that she has. I have to get one. and it's like literally anything Kim Kardashian puts out. Or who's the prettiest Kardashian? Not Khloe. Whoever the one who used to date Rob Disick. She has a site. It's called I forget the name of her site, but she basically does collabs with other brands. So if a brand makes a waist trainer, they'll make like a, I don't think her name is Khloe Kardashian, but they'll make a Khloe Kardashian weight trainer and basically like co-brand it with her. Like people like that actually have influence. The vast majority of quote unquote influencers just have the ability to get a message out to a decent number of people. People with big following simply have people with a big following simply have the ability to broadcast a message to a large audience. That's not nothing, but don't mistake it for influence. Stay away from paying big money to an influencer based on anything else than a sales records from similar campaigns. Even then, I'd rather just offer a generous commission. And that's a big thing. I see a lot of influencer marketing starting to merge with affiliate marketing to where rather than just paying some random influencer $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 to put your message out there with no guarantee it's going to do anything, well, hey, if you really believe in your following, maybe I don't mind giving you a little bit of money up front. I'll give you a couple $100 up front, and I'll give you a generous commission. But, this is going to be a more incentive-based thing. Like if you're actually able to drive sales and you're worth it, you're going to earn more money than you would just getting a flat fee from me. But I'm not going to give you $3,000 that's going to result in no sales. So this is going to be an incentive-based thing. And I thought this first comment was kind of spot on. This guy says, bingo, I make all my money through creator. I call them creators marketing. So he makes all his money through creator marketing. A person with a cult following at 10,000 can bring in more than a person who has 100,000 mostly inactive followers. And it's deeper even than that. If a hot girl in your niche posts about a product, you may not get a single purchase because her users want to see her post thirst traps and not promote your insert random product. So be careful who you work with. And I think what he's saying here is there's a lot of like young, attractive women who have a huge following, and maybe they post a beauty product, and even though they're kind of in the women's niche, it's a bunch of dudes on Instagram gawking at her who make up most of the comments and the interaction and the views. So a company isn't necessarily getting to their audience. Let's take a look at the article that we actually wanted to talk about here. The title of this article, which comes from BBC News, says, "I'm sick of influencers asking for free cake." Why don't people want to pay for cake? Professional chef and baker Reshmi Bennett often wonders why people she doesn't know will ask her to bake an Insta-worthy cake free of charge. The London-based baker runs Angie's de Sucre, and she's created a bit of an online storm by calling out social media influencers who've asked for freebies. I wrote this blog on Instagram because I'm sick of influencers asking for free cake all the time. After the pandemic, it got worse, and it started upsetting me. Like many businesses during COVID-19, Reshmi has seen a change in her customers' behavior. Although many people cut back on unnecessary purchases, her bakery was busy as people carried on ordering her celebration cakes. Yet she noticed influencers were asking for more freebies too. It's something she's done in the past, looking at the influencers and their posts, who follows them, how they engage with their audience, but she says it didn't work for her. We have never had a single sale off someone saying they saw our cake on someone's post or profile. It's always been through word of mouth from paying customers. And she bakes some pretty fancy cakes with like macaroons on top and stuff. The influencer market is large and diverse. Businesses simply have to choose who they want to collaborate with based on what they see on the influencer's feed, what they wear, or what they talk about. Beauty and lifestyle blogger Krishma Vijay gave up her future career in medicine to be a full-time influencer with nearly 180,000 Instagram followers and 70,000 TikTok followers. Her quote-unquote brand influence has been lucrative, but not without effort and hard work on her part, she stresses. I don't know about giving up a medical career for, influencer marketing. Once this girl is not, 17, 18, 19, she's going to kind of fade away. Also, who knows how much longer her influence lasts. People come and go. The influence of the day typically doesn't last more than maybe a year or two at most. So I don't know about that decision. But beauty and lifestyle. Let's see. For a post on my Instagram, I can charge between 200 and 600 pounds, depending on how many hours I've dedicated to that post. This is another stupid thing about influencer marketing, or something that's always turned me off. And it's kind of why I've never really liked Instagram that much. One of the things I like about YouTube is if somebody makes a YouTube review of my product, that video is going to live on YouTube forever, and even potentially 5 years from now, somebody's going to see that post when looking for my product or similar products. And it just kind of gets my product out there in front of people. On Instagram, I've always felt like Instagram is kind of like here today, gone tomorrow. And it's why, I like to kind of leverage my efforts. I like that whatever I put on YouTube is going to continue making money and continue driving traffic and is going to live on YouTube for years to come, where I feel like Instagram, like once a post is more than like a couple hours or even a day or two old, it's kind of forgotten about and falls into the abyss forever. And that's one of the things I've never liked about Instagram. But what I don't like about a lot of these Instagram influencers is like, well, yeah, it's this much money for the post to stay up for 1 hour. It's this much money for it to stay up for 3 hours. There's this much money for it to stay up for 6 hours. I notice a lot of Instagram influencers don't do permanent posts, and those that do charge heftily for it. So I would never pay to have my message show up for 1 hour on most of these influencers. If a cosmetic or skincare brand wants me to create a tutorial using their products, I know that will receive hundreds or even millions of views on Instagram or TikTok, and I know I can make myself at least 2,000 in sales. Forbes predicts huge growth in the influencer space, and the market could be worth $11 billion by 2022. With the sector being so diverse, what is more visible now is the rise of microbloggers, people with a small, loyal following and shorter content posts. This is something Riz Kayal, who runs Eid and Ramadan decorations firm, has embraced. We've worked with over 350 influencers and microbloggers, and I've given away stock worth $15,000 to $20,000 as freebies. And I've always liked micro-influencers. Micro-influencers are people who don't have too big of a head. They have smaller audiences, but their audiences tend to be more engaged and more authentic. And oftentimes these people will work for free product or very little money, as opposed to people wanting, $1,500 for a post that stays up for 1 hour. Riz says working with influencers who provide rate cards is the most productive way to operate. They may charge $300 for 2 posts in an Instagram story, but they make it clear what they will do and how they can showcase the product. And I agree, as somebody who hires a lot of influencers, I feel like that's really important. A lot of people are like, hey, do you want to pay me to promote this? Okay, what did you, because I have people reaching out to me, hey, do you want to pay me to promote this? Well, hey, what did you have in mind? Well, I'm going to promote your product for you. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to promote your product for you. Okay, like how many posts am I going to get? What's the nature of the post? Am I going to get a link in the bio? Am I going to get some type of call out or call to action? How long is it going to remain up? Very few influencers are good at communicating what you're actually going to get from them. And even if you follow up with them to kind of nail that down, I don't want to go into a back and forth 6-thread message just to find out what you're going to charge me for 2 Instagram posts. If you are going to approach a company, have a plan, let them know exactly what you're going to deliver and what they can expect. Brand and digital strategist Ashanti Akabusi has clients from the corporate and entertainment worlds at her company, Virtue Brands. Much of her work is about building and strengthening clients' social media profiles and brands, which often involves working with influencers. When it's the right influencer, they can be extremely impactful for a business. However, she understands that many do not have any real influence they claim they do, which is kind of what we just talked about in that Reddit post. A lot of the backlash we're seeing is in response to an oversaturation of the market and people calling themselves influencers when they probably don't have the right to do so. She says the relationship between a business and an influencer can often be a positive one, but the key is to choose the right influencers. Many brands haven't yet moved away from billboard advertising, but with a growing number of digital spaces to show off products, the arena is bigger. That means more space for ordinary people to work as influencers, like beauty blogger and business student Aisha Shaban. She says she's a reluctant microblogger, 17,000 Instagram followers, but more importantly, is somebody who never asked for freebies. If they reach out to me to collaborate, I'm more than happy to support the company by advertising them on my platforms, but I would never go out of my way to reach out to the brand because I feel that would be taking advantage of their hard work. I think it's disrespectful for micro-influencers to ask small businesses for freebies. Aisha has been offered paid sponsorship deals by big online fashion brands, which she turned down for ethical reasons. This, she says, is what helps a successful influencer to be authentic and followers appreciate that honesty. If a big brand does something she doesn't agree with, she chooses not to work with them. With no financial commitment between them, it's easier to do. With many businesses deeply affected by the pandemic, influencers should be utilizing their powers to help support various industries. Travel blog Miss O Around the World, run by Anna Silva O'Reilly, recently stated recently started a campaign for travel influencers, excuse me, to support the tourism industry. The hashtag #PayOurWay wants influencers who have previously benefited from travel freebies to help kickstart the industry by paying for their next trip and blogging about it free of charge. Also, the somewhat controversial Eat Out to Help scheme was largely supported by food and lifestyle bloggers who championed restaurants, bars, and cafes that were taking part. Should influencers do more to show their worth to businesses in the future? Ashanti Akabusu thinks this is the way forward. Influencers who are going to win are those who are experts in their field and who have the ability to build credibility with their audience. And what about baker Reshmi Bennett, who wants influencers to stop asking for free cake? I'm as passionate about telling other cake makers not to do it. If everyone says no, someone is going to have to pay for the cake at some point. We love influencers as customers. So, thought that was an interesting article. Thought I'd share it with you guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Like, are you an influencer? What are your thoughts on this? Do you hire influencers? Do you see a ROI on doing that? Any other thoughts or comments you have, go ahead and drop them down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you on the next video. Later, guys.